Hey, everybody, PBSE podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today.
Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSE Squared podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the PBSE podcast, episode 330. Steve Moore and Mark Castleman here today with an episode titled No D-Day, No Disclosure. But I know I've been betrayed. Healing from integrity abuse when the truth is still hidden. That is a mouthful.
That is.
Lots tied up in that title. We've got this is a submission from a partner, as you would imagine. Well, we decided this morning in this case that we'd go ahead and we'd read this one. I know we don't always do that, but we thought that would be helpful here, and it's not terribly long, so we will go ahead and do this. And this is again from a partner. I am continually working through my healing. The thing is, there has not been any disclosure day, and when in mediation, it was discussed because they are currently going through a divorce. It was discussed that I had a hunch that he had been unfaithful, and I asked him about pornography. He denied both. So both pornography and an affair. But everything from addict behavior to partner trauma, you and Steve, so she was talking to Mark, and when she wrote this in, you and Steve describe relating to compulsive entitled sexuality and integrity abuse I have lived through for all those years. And the integrity abuse continues through this divorce process. The betrayal of all this is so painful. He says he's not, quote unquote, an addict, though And then she goes on to say, is it possible he hasn't, or he isn't, and he hasn't had an affair, but the 20 years of sexual manipulation, objectification in our relationship, and all the defensiveness, and then she specifies things like deflection, justification, and minimization, as well as projection, have all been present because of all this. Is there still betrayal, and is this still abuse? So in other words, it's kind of a long run-on sentence, but she's asking, even if those things weren't present, is there still a betrayal element here, and is there still abuse? The integrity abuse has been incredibly painful over the years, and more so right now. Without a disclosure day and or an actual discovery of infidelity, I am having a hard time moving through my healing because his narrative that I am the problem and am the unstable one, quote unquote, has been shared to everyone we know, including my kids. Can you guys do a podcast for those of us who have lived through and been traumatized by integrity abuse for years and years, but still are in the dark regarding the secret sexual basement if one does exist? I believe so many women are in this and continue to be abused and traumatized, but don't have the knowledge and means to put a stop to it because we were told that it was quote unquote normal for our husbands to treat us this way. And then she specifies meaning through sexually objectifying talk and discussion and discourse. I am a woman of faith, and I believe all will eventually come to the light. If he doesn't change on his own, I know that my higher power will humble him and bring him to his knees. In the meantime, I need some advice as to how to move forward in my healing as I stay grounded in my reality, even though his intentionally manipulated reality looms all around me and is a cloud that follows me everywhere. I know he's scared out of his mind for his struggle. Again, he's never had a disclosure day with her or shared. But based on all the behavior, all I can seem to conclude is it has been there even before we got married. I know he is throwing me under the bus to protect his image, job, and reputation. It's such a difficult place to be, to know the truth and know he is making me out to be the bad guy while he's the victim in all of this. He is angry, bitter, and vindictive right now. And then she goes on to say, thank you for all you do. I don't know where I'd be without you guys. Any advice that you could extend to us would be helpful.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
That's a lot. There's a lot.
Well, and unfortunately, this is not that unusual. I know Steve's story and my story are a little bit different in the fact that I worked very, very hard to keep my addiction completely secret, hidden away from everyone. My wife, my family, my community, my religious group, everyone. And I call myself the stealth king. And so I have a great deal of empathy for her. I have a great deal of insight because someone say, well, how could someone possibly keep all this stuff hidden? Oh, let me tell you. I would never share all the ways because I wouldn't want to give guys ideas. But was a big part of my story. And why? Because I was like this guy. I was scared to death that anything that came out, my life would literally end. My reputation, my standing in the community, my family, my work, my religious setting. It was all history, and it must be protected at all costs. And I mean all costs. And my attitude was, I'm taking this to the grave. No way this is coming out. So please don't think that that extensive things going on, that they could never be completely hidden. They can. And I've worked with many guys where I thought I was the stealth king. I've worked with guys over the last 20 plus years where the lengths they went to stay hidden even surprised me. So that is absolutely the case. And unfortunately, I've worked with a fair number of partners where this has been the situation. We actually have some pretty close people in our circle where this has taken place, where the woman has been thrown under the bus. All sorts of legal means, all sorts of sabotage with family, friends, and community, where the woman ends up, she says the bad guy, and his reputation stays squeaky clean. I've seen some really awful scenarios where that's been the case. So this is unfortunately not that unusual.
Yeah. Well, and even in those cases, like for myself, where I was pretty proactive in being transparent with my partner, I can still connect with this idea of I was transparent with Brittany and a few trusted people that I trusted to help me, sort of. Outside of that, same story as Mark. Would have taken him to my grave, rather died. Anybody know, you know? So we can, the forces that drive a guy to stay secret in this, they're very much understandable. We can relate,
Yeah.
but in that same breath, we also can't underestimate, as Mark is saying, the damage that is done to a partner and how it complicates the trauma, frankly,
Oh,
of a situation like this.
highly
Um,
complicates. And one of the, so we should just launch. There's so many points we want to make to this.
there's a
And
lot.
our hearts
Yeah.
really go out to this. And our hearts go out to this partner. And our hearts go out to this addict. We really do. We have great concern, and I feel I feel a broken heart, not only towards her especially, but towards him. I know
Yeah.
what it's like to live in this altered reality, and it's not going to end up in a good place. So as we launch in, I think, Steve, the first thing we have to say is just because there has been no quote discovery day or disclosure day, or because everything hasn't come out into the open, does not mean there hasn't been ongoing betrayal. We
Yes.
have to be really careful about coming to that conclusion.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute because that is important, and I think that some partners do operate under that under the idea, and Lord knows, I think many addicts probably front the same idea. Well, if I haven't actually done anything, at least according to my narrative, is this betrayal? Well, the answer is it depends, right? Because how do we go about, for example, processing the concerns or the issues that a partner brings to us, right? As an addict in active addiction, and again, as a guy who, with the exception of I think one occasion that I can recall, never lied to his wife about his addiction. I I mean, there's no other way to say it, and I say this sadly. I'm not saying this flagrant. I abused the crap out of Brittany. I did all the time, emotionally and otherwise. In the context of this, I wasn't lying to her, but I was dismissive of concerns. I was quick to intentionally or unintentionally gaslight. I would undercut things that she would say or call into question, her capacity in different ways, similar to what she's describing here, right? Those kinds of behaviors, whether it's dismissiveness, denial, defensiveness, these behaviors can easily become emotionally and otherwise abusive, regardless of whether or not there's any actual betrayal going on.
Well, and whether or not there's actual betrayal, whether it can be proved, or we could go on and on about that. But she mentions a lot of things, and I see this a ton. This was somewhat present in my approach with my partner. It's attitudes. It's the way he approaches her on the daily.
Yeah.
What has sexuality been like in their relationship? The how we objectify our own partners, how we act in very male sexual entitlement based ways. She references a lot of that. That there were just so many different things about how all he was talking about, that how he even looked at her, all of these behaviors going on that she calls, quote, the smoking gun. She
Mhm.
can't prove, right? Because if this is the case, he's doing such an incredible job of keeping it all secret and hidden. That's why we call it the secret sexual basement that he has been living in. But that doesn't mean that all the other things haven't been present, like you said, right? Manipulation, objectification, defensiveness, denial, right? Reality distortion, sexual entitlement,
Yes.
all these things that have been going on. So she doesn't have to prove porn use or an affair or sexual addiction in order to validate her harm.
Absolutely not. I mean, if I look back on my addiction, if I could magically root out the actual acting out behaviors, but we were to leave everything else that would happen in
Oh
my marriage,
boy.
Brittany would talk about, I've talked about it on here. She would live in fear of me coming home from school or from work in the early days of our marriage. How sad is that? Right? What version of Steve's going to show up in the, I don't know. I don't know what version of Steve. Maybe he's going to be happy and want to connect with me. Maybe he's going to want to have sex 5 times. Maybe he's going to be completely isolated and full of shame, and I'm going to have to rescue him out of his crap. Like, she never knew that level of emotional instability is just one example where if you took out any history of acting out behavior, how ideal would that marriage be? How connecting would that be?
Mm.
How fulfilling or authentic or safe would a relationship like that be? The answer is not zero.
Yeah,
Zero.
because betrayal includes, violations of truth of all kinds, violations of dignity, lack of consent for all sorts of things.
Lack of instability, which is what
Yeah,
I just right.
lack of
What do we all
stability. Yeah,
sign up
lack
for
of
in a
stability.
marriage, right? Whatever else anyone signs up for in a marriage, I don't care what culture background you come from. We sign up for what? Being able to have someone that we can lean on when we need help.
Yeah,
I wasn't
yeah.
somebody you could lean on for anything emotionally.
No, we start talking about lack of emotional safety, lack of sexual
Absolutely.
safety, lack of reality. Let's just
Yes.
write just that one. Lack of living in transparent, total reality.
Yes, absolutely. Let's give one other example just for sake just and I'll be quick about this. But let's say again, we're just assuming for sake of argument that a guy magically truly there was no betrayal going on, but he showed up every day in his relationship in a shame pattern. To all you partners listening, think about that for a minute. If he showed up constantly in shame, you were having to emotionally rescue him all the time. He wasn't making changes to address the shame. He was always falling to pieces anytime you brought up a concern. How happy would you be in that marriage? How safe would you feel? How connected would you feel? Now that doesn't, now I use that example because most people wouldn't say, well, a shame response is abusive, isn't it? If I'm emotionally isolating and withdrawn from my partner all the time, which includes withholding affection, withholding emotional investment, withholding the capacity to stand on my own 2 feet, and withholding support, simply because it's not active abuse doesn't mean that it's not abusive. If
Well,
that happens over the course of months or years or decades,
yeah.
which is the case for many of the partners that Mark and I have worked with, you take just that element and is the sexual betrayal a thing? Yeah, it is. But for most of the partners that we've worked with, hands down, they would vocalize what I just described as being the more significant issue.
Well, we have to be very careful here because we like to classify this level of abuse you're talking about, right? He gets angry, he throws things, he shuts
Yes.
me down, he gets aggressive. How about the way I abused my wife emotionally? I shut down. I went
Hmm.
stoic. I went silent. I wouldn't respond. I would turn into a block of granite. Is that not abusive?
Well, you would, and Mark's told the story before. He would literally just get up and walk out of a conversation.
Yep. Just go silent, turn around and walk away. Leave her sitting there.
Middle of his wife being emotional, trying to share her full authentic self, and he literally just exit stage left.
There's
I would do
all
the same thing, usually throwing something at the wall or screaming some obscenity.
yeah.
But what is that? But in both cases, what is that? Recurrently emotionally abandoning your partner. That's what that is.
Well, and so what does she describe? Sexual entitlement, objectifying talk
Yes.
with her, coercive sexual dynamics, deflection, justification, minimization, projection, blame shifting, and making the wounded partner look like the unstable one
Mhm.
within the family and with everyone around them. Right? The
Yeah.
label, the label of formal betrayal may matter clinically, but the absence of that label does not erase the injury.
Yeah. Well, and she brings up something that's really important to talk about here for a second. It's this concept of integrity abuse. Now, those who've been listening to the podcast for a while know that we've been incorporating terminology from Dr. Omar Minwala, recently a noted psychologist in the field of sexual betrayal and sexual addiction. Mark and I recently completed extensive training underneath him and completed his certification program for therapists. And so we integrate a lot of his dialogue, and this partner is familiar with his work as well because she uses this term integrity abuse. Right. So what is integrity abuse? I mean, let's talk about that for 2 seconds, Mark. What's the simplest definition you could throw out there for integrity abuse?
Well, it's an intentionally manipulated reality that for example, this addict partner, or even if he isn't an addict like he says, it's an intentionally manipulated reality that he creates, and it's part of a pattern of deception, denial, image projection, right? Protecting my image, my reputation. It involves intimidation, manipulation, and again, this whole reality distortion. This is all kind of in this whole concept of harm being done to her. Hey everybody, PBSE podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today. Well, can I bring up one? Because you mentioned it in there, the manipulation piece. Now, she doesn't give us specifics in the submission that she gave us, but she talks about him being a pastor, using highly religiously affiliated logic, right, and reason in different things like sexual objectification and things. Mark and I work in many religious circles and from people with deeply conservative religious backgrounds. We both come from one like that, so we're very familiar with some of those tactics, and we've kind of heard it all over the years. Addict partners, for example, or not even addict partners, but men pressuring their partners for sex because, well, this is how you're supposed to love me and God said so. So if you don't give me sex, that means you don't love me, right? Or you don't care. Or I need to have sex, right? And so if you're not giving me sex, well, then if I act out or if I step out in this marriage in some way, it's kind of your fault.
Yeah, if we were to summarize integrity abuse in kind of one statement, it kind of says this: not only will I harm you in all these various ways, but I will control the story about that harm, and then I will use your reaction to my harm as evidence against you.
Yes. Well, and even worse, I will manipulate your sense of integrity and your morals as a way to get what I want. Well, you love me, don't you? Well, why are you having sex with me?
Yeah.
Well, you must not really love me then. You see, can we all hear that, guys? I mean, that's just
or I'm the respected businessman. I'm the pastor. I'm the guy who the community all knows is awesome. So I'm gonna build on that and make sure that they all know that this is you.
Yes.
Not me. This is you. Yeah.
100%.
That's integrity abuse.
Absolutely. So lots of elements there, right, that could be present. Like I said, we don't have specifics on this particular one, but we have a very good idea of what's going on here. All right. So as we kind of move down here, oh, Mark, I just lost my screen.
Oh yeah, we made some notes.
I made some notes.
We've kind of
Apologize. I
mentioned
just
this
lost
already,
one.
but I've seen this so often. We call it this image management reality. I engaged in that for decades, right? Engaging in private harm behind the walls of your home versus your public reputation. I was raised with stepfathers who lived this, and they taught it to me, right? The one that said, "Man, your he's the greatest guy. You know how amazing he is. You're so lucky." Well, you should have lived within the walls of my home, right? So it's a very unique trauma of being harmed by someone who is publicly respected, especially like a pastor or a community leader or a CEO or anyone that's highly respected out there in the public. Privately, the partner experiences all these things we've talked about, but publicly, this person she's married to, he appears calm, spiritual, credible.
Mm-hmm.
He even appears to be victimized.
Yeah.
Right? He's the victim. This is trauma times 10. Right? It creates just a brutal double bind. The more she tries to tell the truth, the more unstable she's made to look. And that image management, if that's what he's engaging in, it isn't simply about his reputation. This becomes a tool of control, especially when a public-facing identity is being protected at the partner's expense.
Yeah.
We have seen that a lot. Protecting my public-facing identity at the expense of my partner, whom I'm supposed to love and be devoted to above all people on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about this healing concept while still in the dark, right? Because for partners, obviously, this is not your typical betrayal trauma healing situation. This particular partner is formally in the process of a divorce, so this relationship is formally ending, although there are kids involved. So the relationship ending is kind of a relative term because it won't really end, at least in totality, with regard to the co-parenting. But how does this healing happen, right? I mean, that's when we get down to like really brass tacks. What does that look like in a dynamic where he is not owning fully his side of the street, or at least she heavily suspects that he's not, right? What does that mean?
Yeah. How do you heal when quote things stay in the dark?
I think that there is, I want to be careful with this because, one of the main like therapy 101 concepts, right, is that, and we really do mean this in the therapy world. It's not just like a nice idea, is that feelings are always valid. Now, they may not line up with facts. They may or may not. That's a different discussion. But feelings and emotions are always worthy and deserving of validation. And when I work with partners or in coupleships, and when Mark does the same, it's one of the things that we focus on right out the gate, right? I had a discussion recently with an addict that I've had too many times in my office, which is, so what do you want more, man? Do you want to be right, or do you want to connect? Like, what's going to be your main priority here? Do you want to die on this hill in disputing facts and just dig in with your partner, or do you want to set aside facts for a moment and try to connect with what your partner is actually trying to tell you? Because whether she's right or wrong doesn't have any play or perspective on the fact that your partner is in pain and she's hurting and she's bleeding out. So do you want to address the bleeding out, or do you want to sit and tell her why factually she shouldn't be? Right? That's what we're really talking about.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. And so that's kind of the first thing out of the gate, right? And again, it speaks back to this emotionally abusive component that we're talking about here, or a neglectful component, like the Mark just indicated, right? So in from her perspective, right, it's important that she seek validation, and that she provides some of that validation for herself in regards to what she does know for certain. right? Because we could speculate about his stuff all day long, and the traumatized brain can easily do that. And we always try to dissuade partners from doing that because your trauma brain will just run amok with and fill in the blank with every possible worst case scenario ever. Which in a case where a divorce is already taking place isn't going to be helpful because this relationship is terminating. So when we talk about what that looks like for her, right? What are the things that she can for sure focus on and gravitate to? Well, what she has experienced sexually. Does she know she's been sexually betrayed in terms of his stepping out of the marriage? No, according to her narrative. But does she know she's been manipulated, pressured, objectified? Yeah, she knows all of those things, right?
Yeah.
Spiritually and relationally, has she been manipulated, abused, possibly neglected? Yes, right? She can own and acknowledge, for example, what she has been carrying around in her body on a physiological level for years while this has been going on. Really great book out there. If any of you partners haven't read it, it's a heavy read, but The Body Keeps the Score.
Great book.
Really great research based. I mean, you'll read a page at a time and need a nap after it. It's really heavy reading, but really talks about some of the latest research around this concept of where we carry pain in the body. What patterns have repeatedly showed up in the marriage? Again, regardless of this of the source, right? Was the source sexual infidelity or not? We don't know. But that doesn't change the fact that he was emotionally variable, that he was dismissive, that he was neglectful, that he was doing all these other things, right? Regardless of the source, the behaviors were still present. And that includes things like when she would ask questions, and I can really tragically relate to this. When Brittany would try to bring up questions with me vulnerably, immediate defensiveness, immediately shut down. How dare you question me? How could you even think that about me? How would you ever, right? Constantly having your reality shut down. How he responded to her when she was in pain, kind of going back to what we were talking about. Every time she would vocalize, "Hey, I'm hurting here," and him more or less coming back and saying, "Well, you shouldn't. So stop." I mean, isn't that the dynamic that we're talking about here? Quit hurting. You're not really hurting. You're not really bleeding. Let me tell you all the reasons why you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And then part of that discussion is, what does she need now for safety, support, and stability?
Yes.
Right? Because the real message here is you don't have to wait for the hidden truth to be revealed before you begin healing from the known harms.
Absolutely.
And what does she know, right? We would encourage her to start to get really practically, we would call it reality anchored, as she starts to write down and really ponder on, right? What do I know has happened and was going on? What have I experienced in my body and in my emotions? What patterns did I repeatedly see? Right? What do I suspect but cannot be proved? What I need, regardless of what he admits or does not admit. What I will no longer debate. Right? These are the kinds of things for her to start to find her voice. And she can't find, she's probably not going to ever have it with him, but finding a voice in her own journaling and pondering, her own relationship with her higher power, finding the voice with support groups, with other women who have gone through the same thing. It's very important that she starts to anchor in these kinds of things rather than allowing herself to just kind of float aimlessly in the unknown. Let's get to the known, because there's a lot. There's a lot that is known.
Well, and we don't have this down in our notes, but it's something that we ought to say because, again, there are sometimes these cultural pressures or realities that we learn either in childhood or from our families of origin or, from colleagues or whatever about certain realities that may not be correct. And one of those that Mark and I see when we're working in marriages all the time is that I need some sort of a factual basis for my pain to be valid.
Yes.
Right. I have to have there's got to be some sort of evidence. There's got to be an affair partner. There's got to be, evidence of the masturbation. There's got to be web search history of the pornography. There's got to be something that will then make it okay for me to feel what I'm feeling. And God knows that this partner, according to this partner's account, has not done a stellar job of validating pain. But it's one of those realities that Mark and I and other professionals who work in this field, when we're talking about betrayal, we're talking about trauma, is that it's important that we be dispelling and working on attacking any of those realities that we might carry that say, I need my abuser to validate what I've been through in order for me to begin healing.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it's like I need permission.
Mm-hmm.
You do not need, to any partner listening to us here today, if you don't take anything else from this today, please take this. You don't need his acknowledgement or his validation of what he's done or not done, or a combination of both, in order for you to be able to vocalize and be justified in your need to take space for you to heal and to repair, to grow, to adapt, to move forward in a situation.
Yeah.
We don't, and this is I know this is gonna be kind of triggering, but we do not ever look at rape victims and say, well, you need to hear an apology from your rapist before you can get better. It's not something we do. And the same concept applies here. You don't need his permission or his validation for your pain to be real. And the more you can separate from that through, like Mark said, using support groups and other resources, the healthier off you're going to be. So any element of that that's lingering is going to hold a partner back in this.
Well, as I recall from this submission, I think there's children involved.
There are.
And she sounds like a really reasonable, pretty grounded person, but we probably do well to just say something really simple about that. We should never in any case use our children as, quote, witnesses, allies, or judges. I've seen that go awry so often. She can just offer calm, age-appropriate truth, like there are painful adult issues between your dad and me. I'm getting support. You don't have to choose sides. So important for kids. I love you. I'll keep showing up for you, right? That kind of approach and dialogue. And then her moving forward, right? What does moving forward look like? We would just encourage her to we honor her faith and her longing for truth, for reconciliation, even for vindication, or her day in court where the truth could be told. Those are such understandable and such needed feelings. At the same time, we encourage her to not allow her healing to be held hostage by whether he ever confesses or repents or is ever exposed or humbled. None of those things may ever come, but her healing is paramount and the absolute first priority for her. So moving forward means naming the harm she knows, releasing the need for his agreement, and very much building a trauma-informed support team, right? And we hope she has good legal counsel. We hope that she's calmly documenting stuff, staying regulated, protecting herself from reactive communication and others. And there's a grieving process for her to go through, the grief of what's been lost, the tragedy of what's been lost. There is a grieving of that. And then just reclaiming her dignity and her sovereignty through truth and stability, right?
Yeah.
I mean, our hearts really go out to this amazing woman.
I mean, issues like this, especially when kids are involved, I mean, it never is simple, right? Separating and ending a relationship, which we're sorry to hear is going on here, is obviously devastating. And I doubt very much he's listening. But if in the unlikely event that he does, just echoing what Mark said, it is absolutely critical that parents in a situation like this maintain transparency with their kids about what is going on in terms of the process forward, or what's happening in the relationship in terms of, well, we're going to be separating or divorcing or whatever. But it is absolutely likewise just as critical, if not more so, that children not be weaponized. Well, we're ending the marriage because your dad's an idiot, or, whatever, right? Kids are just innocent bystanders in this. They're collateral damage. They're already going to endure a tremendous amount. So at a baseline level, we hope that if you can't have regard for your partner, please have regard for your kids, and don't set them up for future further trauma or difficult dynamics down the road because of emotional issues that you haven't figured out yet.
And as painful as it is for kids, with regard to a father being, dumped on, it is equally or even more tragic and harmful to destroy a child's mother.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or it appears that there may be some of that going on here. And boy, we would encourage, if that's happening, to back up and really consider the long-range consequences of such a thing.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, thank you. We know it's been a hard episode. Usually, these episodes rarely end without the need or the desire to watch some Care Bears afterwards. And totally understand that. We know we tackle tough subjects here, but we appreciate you being here. As always, if you like the podcast, you will love Dare to Connect. We'd love to have you come and try out our 2-week program, or for 2 weeks free, our Dare to Connect program for addict spouses and couples. You can grab a free trial of that at daretoconnectnow.com. And for those who are wanting to send in questions to the podcast, we are a bit backed up now, about 2 months plus for getting submissions addressed, but you are welcome to send those to that same website. Click on the PBSC banner up at the top of daretoconnectnow.com, scroll down to the bottom, and there's a contact form where you can send those in to us as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for being here with us. Love and appreciate all of you. And we'll catch you next time in PBSC, or if you decide to come on over to DC, we'll see you there.
All right. Bye-bye.
Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.